Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar broadcast this afternoon for In-House Tools for TAM, which is another offering in our TAM webinar series. My name is Alexandra Galanti, and I help manage FTA's Transit Asset Management Program. I'm filling in today for Mishadoni Smith. Our first speaker today is going to be Thomas Humphrey. He's the Project Director of Asset Management at Metro Transit in Minneapolis. And second, we'll have Sree Mitra, the Grant Manager in the Public Transit Bureau of Iowa State Department of Transportation, and her associate, Joseph Drahos. They'll be talking about tools they've developed in-house that help them with asset management. Before we begin the presentations, I wanted to mention a couple of things happening over at FTA. If you haven't visited FTA's TAM website recently, we've made some updates, so feel free to check back. Also, stay tuned for the next edition of TAM News, which will be coming out in the next week or two and will include some additional resources and announcements. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Tom Humphrey with Metro Transit. Tom?
Good afternoon. My name is Thomas Humphrey. I'm the Project Director for Asset Management for Metro Transit in Minneapolis and St. Paul. I'm here today to talk about how we are creating a sustainable asset condition program within the overall Transit Asset Management Program. So first, I'd like to state the obvious. Of course, Transit Asset Management really prioritizes how we are delivering safe, reliable service. We provide our value to our customers. Of course, that we're fiscally responsible with all of the assets we're responsible for. And there are many pieces to the transit asset management puzzle, such as the asset registry, level of service, criticality, capital planning aspects. But today we're really focusing in on asset condition. So the situation we have to manage is a huge volume of data that is relative to condition, and it's dynamic, it's ever-changing. There's a large amount of data inflow, such as asset condition data, defects, time to perform assessments of these assets and where they're located. And of course, the data outflow to the people doing this work with precision, consistent instructions, job aids where needed, and employee feedback. And this all, of course, impacts the operation. I feel our most valuable asset is our employees. We have to have a workforce that has the required knowledge, skills, and abilities to do the work that we need them to do, provide them technical training that trains the workforce to meet these challenges of today's complex asset design. We need to provide them precision processes to assist them with their work and provide on-demand job aids so that if there are questions when they're doing this type of work, that they have access to it, and also provide a means for employees to provide feedback, provide periodic QA, and provide a system that is intuitive, user-friendly, and paperless. I like to say that if it's simple on the outside, it's going to be complicated on the inside, and e-process management is no different. So with this, I'll dive into some screenshots of the web pages that we use for this process. And this would be the opening web page for an employee coming in. And so off to the right here, you can see there's a warehouse selection. The default for that is the employee's home warehouse, but they are able to select others if there's a need to do so. And that each blocks within the matrix provides direct access to various processes. When you click on the block, it brings you to a dynamic list that's generated out of our ERP system. And it's sorted in descending sort order with the most due at the top. But there is a search function if they're doing an asset out of sequence for whatever reason, especially ones that are located out away in the field, so that they're able to access that information easily. This system also provides them access to other asset information, such as active work requests, which are deferred defects that need to be managed, and work orders that are currently active. as well as a history of the last 30 days so that employees that are doing these type of asset evaluations are able to see all of the information that pertains to it that's relevant to that. When you click in on a certain asset, it then brings you to a section that has all of the various sections of the process. And you can see on the top right, there's a clock in feature so that when an employee clocks in, we're now able to track their time so we understand how long it takes to do these processes. And this really is going to help us when we're budgeting for full-time equivalent employees to do this work. When you click in on a line, you're able to now access precision instructions for them to be able to do the work. There's also a link to job aids so that I can have PDF files out of user manuals. I can also provide videos and other training media so that employees are able to access that if they have questions on how to perform any type of a process. This also accounts for the ability to log defects. So 3 things are required when you are going to notate a defect. You have to provide the defect text, you have to provide the priority, and then you have to save the record. But you're also able to take pictures of it with your mobile tablet device. Of course, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and having this will be especially invaluable when you're talking about the exterior condition of things, such as buses or LRVs or other rolling stock. The Add Comments feature, we feel, is critical so that employees that are doing these evaluations in the field are able to provide other non-defect commentary. And that really helps us establish a flow between the employee and the people that are developing the processes to keep these relevant. This system also allows for logging measurement data. So we're able to measure anything, quarts, gallons, volts, whatever the unit of measure is. There's a configuration table in the background that notates what the unit of measurement is, as well as the valid range. And when you select the Validate button, it compares that to the config table, and anything that's out of spec gets logged as a defect. Also, if I have a defect that was found on a previous evaluation and hasn't been repaired yet, shows up in the body of the text so that we're able to continue to make the data that we have on assets relevant and accurate. At the end, when they're all done, the employee is then able to submit this to the supervisor, so the supervisor knows that that process is completed and can begin the process of reviewing that information for approval. So we do have a supervisor screen that allows them to monitor the progress of employees and also gives them the opportunity to provide a final editing of the information that was entered by the employee. And they also approve all of the defects, so this provides awareness of the management of what may need to be acted on immediately. So there's a lot of benefits to the e-process management system. It works with various types of assets, such as equipment, works with rolling stock, infrastructure and facilities, as well as fixed guideway elements are all able to be managed with this system. Other benefits of e-process management is it provides an efficient business process. It's a web-based automated system by department. It streamlines the work order process from start to finish. It's paperless and allows for instant access to current and historical data from anywhere that has a terminal that's connected to the system. It tracks employee time, and it also tracks who the person was, where they were at the date time that they were working on this line, as well as the location of each line. And of course now, measurement and observation text are now data for future analytics of asset decay curves. It also documents asset condition and defects. Asset condition is able to be tracked. Real-time decision-making can be made. Decay curves can be more accurately determined. Defects that are found can be prioritized and stored in work request. The work request life cycle is completed when you make a work order. And of course, if an active work request is not repaired, it shows up on the next PM for validation. There's also a process history that's maintained within the system. So the system knows when a process was created. If an instruction changes, the system retains the change history and allows for reports to display current and historical process text. And this is especially important when processes changed and you have in the system processes that were completed previously that may have had some significant changes to it. It really keeps a good audit trail of what we are expecting our employees to do at any given point in time. There is, of course, the job aids piece. The job aids allow for line-by-line job aid with multiple media formats, Adobe files, JPEGs, videos. And it also provides that precision information to cope with more and more complicated asset systems and the challenges presented by staff turnover, which I know for Metro Transit has been a significant issue. Finding people that are technically adept, training them to processes, but things are really complex, and this gives them a leg up on that. There's also a quality assurance piece, and this allows for simplified QA checks. I know that we struggled with doing effective QA just due to the number of volume of assets that we maintain and the employees over the systems. We are able to skinny this down where they're literally only checking 5 processes per line. We'll be developing a randomized algorithm to make sure that we're checking everybody on everything over time. And if there's a failed QA, that now we know where to focus our training or employee management. And this really develops a systematic means of ensuring process health and employee performance. So the benefits of this to transit really are now quality condition data for transit asset management, for the employees' precision instructions so that we're able to consistently do these processes, and that we provide them job aids so they're able to more effectively do their work, and provides, of course, that robust and systematic QA. So that's the end of my presentation. I would like to give a special shout out to some key staff who contributed to this initiative at Metro Transit. That would be Applications Developer Scott Weiss, Fleet Service Supervisor Steve Kari, and of course Project Manager Carolyn Harris. Without their invaluable help, we wouldn't be as far along as we are. With that, thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Tom. I want to remind all the participants that the chat pod is there to submit questions that we'll take at the end of both presentations. So I've seen some questions there already, and feel free to submit more. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Sree Mitra and Joe Drahos from Iowa DOT to talk about their in-house tool that they've developed to support asset management. Sree?
Hello. There we go. I see my slides come up now. Good afternoon. I'm Sree Mitra from the Public Transit Bureau at the Iowa DOT, and with me is Joe Drahos from our Systems Planning Office. Joe is the person who developed the app that we'll be talking about today, and he will co-present with me during this webinar. To start off, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we are organized in Iowa. So this map basically shows you where all our transit agencies are located across the state. The blue icons depict our larger urban systems that have populations of over 50,000. And then the green icons are showing you where our smaller urban systems are. These are also fixed route systems, but they have smaller populations of less than 50,000. And then that was the yellow icons, sorry. And then the green icons are the regional systems that primarily serve our rural counties and are demand response in nature. So for our transit asset management plan, our group plan included the small urbans and the regional systems only, and our 12 larger urban systems did their own asset management plans. Okay, so when we started, when the TAM rules were published, we realized that we had a pretty good system in place already for vehicles that we already managed centrally here at the DOT. We had lots of data available to have a pretty robust asset management for rolling stock. However, we didn't have anything significant in place for facility assessments. And we really had to start with a blank sheet of paper on how we were going to do this. So I basically had a wish list going. So my vision was to have a facility assessment system that would be easy to use, and it would enable somebody to enter data as they walked through the facility doing the assessments, preferably paperless, so we would not have a lot of duplication in coming back to the office and entering the data, and minimize extra work following the post-assessment process. We wanted to be consistent with the FTA guidance and incorporate the term scale. And we also wanted to, as far as possible, have scoring consistency across the state. So those were kind of the main features that we were looking for in developing a good facility condition assessment system. Prior to development of this app, we did collect all the NTD required facility data from the transit agencies, such as address, square footage, the type of facility it was, etc., so that we could preload all of this information into the app so there wouldn't be any typing required for these types of fields. Okay. So in summer of 2018, we did use our app to do assessments on about 40 buildings using this in-house developed system. It was developed to closely follow the guidance from FTA's TAM Facilities Performance Measure Guidebook. And to have some consistency across the state, we hired an intern that summer to do all the assessments, so there would not be any user variation as we did this. Our larger 5307 agencies that I mentioned did have their own transit asset plan development process, but the DOT did offer to assess their facilities using this app if they so desired. And I think about 8 of the 12 larger urban systems did take us up on that offer and have us do their facility assessment as well. Okay, so for the next few slides, we will be going through some screenshots from that app. This works with either iPads or Android tablets, and it was developed using Survey123 for ArcGIS. Okay, so when you open up this app on your tablet, you'll see a map of your state. In this case, it was Iowa, and it shows you where all the transit agencies are located, or rather the transit facilities are located. And the time that this screenshot was taken, we had done some of our assessments but not completed all of them. So the blue tags tell you which assessments have been completed and submitted, and then the ones without the icons depict the ones that are yet left to be done. You are able to change that base map to a street view, for example, and there are several other options as well. This one allows you to zoom down to the street level or the building level and use this as a GPS type of system as well. And so back to this original map. If you click on one of the icons, you'll see this little pop-up box that will say Begin New Assessment. And at this point, I will turn it over to Joe to walk you through how the app works as the assessor is going through the facility. Joe?
Thank you, Sree. So yeah, as Sree mentioned, we equip the field collector with the tablet. They go out and we'll be using, they actually initially start with the collector app by ESRI. They navigate to one of those black and white transit facilities that we pre-populated, hit that blue icon that says Begin New Assessment, and then that opens up Survey123. So the two actual apps are connected together. What you're looking at is the Survey123 interface, and you'll see that some of the information from the point and collector has been pre-populated. So the name of the facility, the region, the street address are already pre-populated in there. What the collector then can do is review all of this information with the transit facility manager just to make sure everything looks right. A lot of these pieces of information can be changed with drop-down pick lists. So, for example, the type of facility, if upon review they note that actually it's just an administrative facility and not a maintenance facility, they can select that through a drop-down menu and change it. So we tried to standardize and streamline the interface as much as possible. Likewise, with things like the year or the square footage, we restricted that to only be on numbers that can be inputted so that they can't type in words or letters or special characters like that. The main part of the assessment is to conduct that condition rating. So what you're looking at is kind of the heart of the app. So it defaults to having the current date and time of the assessment. The user could change this if they want. You'll see there's a little drop-down arrow next to it. When they select that, a little calendar comes up, and they'll be able to tap on the screen what day they want to set it to. The next blank there is the overall condition rating. It starts at 0, and this is actually a read-only blank. So this value will change depending on how they answer the different subcategories there that's indicated with the letters A through I. So substructure, shell, all the way through electrical and site. Depending on how they answer, that number will change. So in this example, we're looking at the shell. They hit the little gray arrow next to it, the triangle there, and that either expands or collapses the section as they want. And we populated all of the subcategories with as much reference material from the FTA guidance as we could. So we especially liked having images on what indicates, adequate condition versus good condition, and then try to provide all of the language in there describing what all of those mean. Then the field collector would go through and start answering the questions. We broke them out on kind of sub-questions there on a scale of 1 for poor all the way 5 for excellent. We did put a not applicable option on there, which gets recorded as a value of 0, which you can't see on there. But as they answer the questions and apply condition ratings, it starts to update the subtotal that you can kind of see there toward the top of the screen that says 3.5. So depending on how they answer, it'll change that. And then what you don't see is that overall condition rating, which is also being dynamically changed as well. After they answered all the questions within each of those subsections, we provided an opportunity for the collector to supply any relevant notes or observations in just kind of an open-ended text box there, as you can see under the substructure notes. Immediately underneath that, you'll see Substructure Photo. From there, they can use the camera that's on the tablet to take photographs of any deficiencies or conditions that they felt needed to be noted. They can use that notes section up above there to kind of document what they're seeing and observing as well. There's no restriction on the number of photos either, so really you're just limited by the space on their tablet. Once they submit the assessment, they can switch back to the collector app and they'll see that blue icon appear on top of the facility icon, indicating that they've submitted the assessment successfully. They can reselect that blue icon and review the information that they just submitted, including being able to look at all of the images and photographs that they took. And with that, I will turn it back over to Sree.
Thank you, Joe. So that's basically in a nutshell how the app was working. And then as assessments are being done in the field, we can see the results in real time back in the office. So this is a picture of a dashboard, and all those little squares in various shades of green are what the assessments, the overall scores were for the various transit systems. So clicking on one of these icons will pop up the details of that particular assessment. Here's another dashboard view. In this one, you can see some other information around that map. So at the time this screenshot was taken, we had completed 32 of the 40 building assessments that we were going to complete. So that shows you that that's 80% of the assessments have been completed. And that little dial at the bottom of the screen shows you that the average for all the facilities done so far in the state was a 3.8. So that was the score overall for the 32 facilities that had been assessed so far. And then as time goes on, we can also have all kinds of trending graphs. This particular one just shows the scores for the various agencies. But when we do a few more rounds of these kinds of assessments, we can start looking at trends over the years and if there's a particular area that needs more attention and so on. So there's a lot of good features that we can use in this dashboard app. This is another view. So the dashboard is dynamic. If we zoom that map to a particular area of the state, for example, here we have zoomed in on the northwest part of Iowa, the statistics around that will also change to just depict what's on the map. So this is 9 facilities that have been assessed so far out of the 10 that we need to do in that area, and it shows the score for just that part of the state. So you can look at broad sections of the state, or you can look at particular areas to see if there are some features that pop out, as you get more granular. Okay, the Survey123 software can also generate a report. So what we did do as we completed these apps is generate a report for all the transit managers, so they would have a copy of what the assessment looks like. That first page just gives a general overall view of how each of the subsections of the facility was scored, and then further pages will give details about how components of a subsection were noted. Any notes that the field collector made would also be displayed in this particular detailed version. For example, under shell, our assessor made a note saying that there's some parts of the garage doors are rusting, and then she took a photograph. So on the next page of the report, you can also see all the photographs, and that bottom left-hand one shows a little bit of rust on the garage door, so you can see exactly what she was noting in her assessment. So these were very helpful to the transit managers, and it provides a good way to reference back and see if conditions are getting worse and need to be, some resources need to be allocated to fix problems. More detailed information about this facility condition assessment app can be found in the FTA case study that is linked over in this slide. And finally, I thought I'd just talk about a few lessons learned while we were doing this. So it was important to do field testing before we went out and did real assessments. This was important to troubleshoot the app and also build in user-friendly features. For example, maybe the button would work better if it was at a certain place. Maybe the font would needed to be increased a little, and things like that. But also any glitches that happened while doing this test assessments gave us good, we could detect problems and then fix them before we actually went out in the field. Consistency checks prior to the assessment gave us more confidence in the tool reliability. And by that, what we mean is we wanted to see if this tool was somewhat user independent. So our intern and I actually went to one of our test facilities with 2 tablets with the app loaded on them, and we did independent assessments of that same facility, and we compared scores at the end, and we were within 0.2 of each other. So that gave us some confidence that there was enough guidance on the tool to provide some amount of independence, and it wouldn't be so operator dependent. And I would like to thank the FTA guidebook for that. That was very helpful because all that guidance was available on the app. So if you were unsure about how to score one, you could pull up the guidance and refer to that and make a better judgment of where the score needed to be. Also, the combination of apps such as field data collection, applications, dashboards, and all the reporting tools available made it possible to quickly create a robust system of assessing and monitoring facility conditions. And finally, with appropriate in-house expertise, and Joe provided us all of that expertise here in the house, we could actually create these systems ourselves without having to turn to third-party contractors, which would be very expensive. And that's all I have. Here's our contact information if you'd like to follow up with us at any point. We'd welcome your inquiries. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Sree and Joe. I really appreciate it. It looks like we have about 28 minutes left in the webinar. So what I'm going to do is pull up the chat with our questions on it, and we'll get to hopefully all of them in the time that we have. If we don't get to them, then I'll share your question with the presenters and try to get an answer to you. So please be sure to add your question, and if we don't get to it during this time, I or Mr. Joni will respond to you with a response to the presenter. So give me just a minute to make sure I can get to everyone's question. So the first question was from Julio Flores, and I believe this is going to be for Tom. What software are you using to manage your assets?
So today we have an older system, TX base. We purchased the code in 1996, and it's been highly customized. The software that we demonstrated today was developed in-house. It's a .NET application with a SQL Server backend. And we intentionally designed this so that if we get a new EAM system or ERP system, that it will function with that. And the Met Council is in the beginning stages of developing an RFP for a new enterprise asset management system. So our hope always was that all of the intellectual property that we have within the system for evaluating assets will just be portable over to the next system.
Great. Thanks, Tom. And the second question we have, which I believe is also for you, is this a promo for a specific software system?
That would be no. So this system has been developed over the course of 3 or 4 years. Phase 1 was just creating a dynamic database-driven process for managing all of the instructions that we have for evaluating assets. And then Phase 2 was the web app, Phase 3 was the job aid, and Phase 4 was the quality assurance piece. But this is not available publicly.
Great. Thanks, Tom. So the next question is this a pass-fail inspection? I did not see a method for a condition rating, and that's from Martin Anastelli.
And that's something that we're going to be working towards. The first thing that we worked on was being able to provide the instructions for how to evaluate things. And our intent is to continue to evolve this so that it weaves in asset condition value aspects. And then we would get these real time with employees that are evaluating these assets.
Great, thank you. The next question that I see is the software adaptable for annual inspections?
The answer is yes. It's adaptable for any type of asset, fixed guideway, rolling stock, facilities, infrastructure, and any inspection level from 10-day inspections all the way to 2- or 5-year inspections.
Great. And from Randy Lamb, what is the vendor of the Metro system?
So the vendor for our ERP system is TXbase, and there is no vendor for the e-process management tool, as that was developed in-house.
Sorry about that. What was the completeness of the asset information that went into the tool?
So that's something that's being developed over time. So for our bus maintenance department, I think this is true for most agencies, they had a high level of transit asset management maturity, very defined processes, so very much complete information set for that. And for other systems, such as our LRVs and our commuter rails, today they're still using the Word documents, and they're going to be transitioning over to this system over time. And to answer the middle part of the question, how long did it take to develop the tool? Probably in total a year or so, and that included a lot of testing stuff. But in our case, it was kind of drawn out over time, as we really didn't have dedicated staff working on it continuously. And the staff resources to support the project, we had one back-end designer. This person did all the table structure and design. Stored procedures were created. And then we had a .NET person write on a UX framework that we had purchased for the purposes of this project.
Great, thank you. And the next question from David Burrows, I think that we've talked about this. It's what was the Metro Transit tool? Was it a commercially available software, or was it a custom developed application? Is there anything you just wanted to add to that, Tom?
Well, no. I know that there are commercially available softwares that do components of this, but we were very interested in having the whole cloth method to be able to evaluate assets with staff that are in the field today, and then weave into that asset condition aspects so that we're able to come back with that asset condition rating.
Great, thank you. And I think this next question from Richard White might be for Sree and Joe. You can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't most fleet operations asset replacements predicated on cost per mile per month or year?
For fleet, we do have a separate system. So this particular app was designed only for facility assessments. We do have, we base our fleet replacement on miles and age of vehicles, and we have a formula-based system that does that.
Thank you. And from Tina Ignat, for Iowa DOT, is there any link between CMMF and Survey123?
I'm not sure what, I'm not familiar with the term CMMS. I'll assume that maybe that's the source of data of the facilities. There is a link between the facilities and then the assessment forms done in Survey123. There's a relationship class that maintains that connection so that we can do as many assessments that are connected back to that original facility point as we want. That'll actually be nice if we want to go back and do another assessment and then compare multiple years together and see how they're changing.
So Tina was just clarifying that CMMS stands for Computerized Maintenance Management or Maintenance Management System.
Tina, is this a commercially available product? We are not familiar with it.
While Tina may reply to that question, I'm going to move on to the next one. So who is the software vendor for this application, from Chad Cumberworth?
The ESRI is the one who developed the collector app in Survey123, and then we're the ones that configured it and set it up to collect on the facilities.
Great. And then from Julio Flores, down below, similar question for Iowa DOT, who did you use to help develop your app? I think this is more of the...
Well, the actual setup of it, well, beyond the FTA guidance, we just did it ourselves.
Right, it was all Joe.
Yeah, and I'm just a planner, so anybody can do this. I'd like to add that.
Great. So the next question is for FTA. Why hasn't FTA developed a standard software that can work with multiple database systems, such as Maximo, to consolidate the data? Something open source would be great. And I am going to let Ms. Shidoni answer that question at a later date, since I am not able to answer that question. So instead, we're going to move on to Randy Lamb. Does the app recommend projects that need to be done? And that'll be for Iowa DOT.
No, it does not do that at this time. It does give you a score, so indirectly, if the score falls below a 3, that would mean that there needs to be some resources allocated, but it doesn't directly report specific recommendations like that.
All right, and it wouldn't prioritize your projects for you?
No, it wouldn't do that.
Okay. So the next question is from Martin. How does the Iowa Collector app aggregate the individual ratings into an overall condition rating for a facility?
That is done by Survey123 as they're answering questions and setting those condition ratings for the different subcomponents. It's automatically calculating a subcomponent score, and then that's contributing to the overall condition score. And those, right now, it's just a simple average, but it does it all automatically.
Thank you. From Stanley's Son, it seems like everyone has the same problems, but using different software. What's the solution? That's a large question that I don't know if the scope of this webinar can fully address. If either of our presenters have any input they wanted to put in, that would be great. If not, then I'll just move on to the next question.
I do think that the software situation is a challenge. And it also kind of ties back to having that standardized software so that really all of the information that we contribute is easily mapped out to those common themes with the FTA. And I think at a number of the conferences that I've been a part of, you know, the common theme is that some people expected a software to solve their asset management problems, and of course that's not true. Asset management is more functional and process-driven and systematic, and a system can assist with that, but it doesn't do it for you. And I really do think it's the consolidated groups that have to start asking vendors for the same thing that over time will help guide us into a similar framework.
Great, thanks, Tom. And from Julio Flores, for Iowa DOT, how many assets are you managing?
So we actually don't manage the assets as strictly. It's our transit systems that do. We provide guidance. We actually don't have any service that the DOT itself provides. The transit systems manage their assets, and so it kind of depends. As far as doing the assessments for this particular TAM program, we had about 40 buildings that our systems had capital responsibility for, so we did an assessment based on which systems were responsible for those resources.
Iowa DOT is a group plan sponsor for transit.
Yes, we're a group plan sponsor for 23 subrecipient agencies, so they manage their own assets. So for this particular case, we did 40 buildings.
Great, thanks, Sree. For Thomas Metro, from Roland Cordero, is your ERP in addition to a fleet maintenance software like RTA to record work orders and fleet repair history?
So our ERP system is our fleet maintenance software at this time, and yet it manages our work orders, our PM intervals, retains our history, and I'm happy to say that this system also correlates all employee time to specific work orders, so we know with great precision where our labor force is going. And my fear is that future systems may not have that functionality. My hope that it is, but again, we're just dipping our toe into the pool of enterprise asset management systems in the next several years.
Great, thanks, Tom. So I'm going to go to Raphael's question first, and then we'll get to Tina's rephrased question. Does the e-management prevent validation if data is not entered into a measurements field? This should be for Iowa DOT.
Yes, if the data does have conditions on it. So if it's an invalid data, for example, if there are multiple numbers entered for a date field that doesn't look like a date, it will not accept it. And these are mandatory fields, so if anything is left blank, it would also not accept it. It would not allow the collector to submit.
Great, thanks, Sree. And this looks like it'll be our last question, so feel free to get those in if you haven't already. From Tina, her rephrased question is Survey123 connected to a maintenance management system, or is it standalone?
It would be standalone.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. I see one more question here from Kimberly. Is this something that should be taken up by an MPO or by the DOT? We're a very small transit system, and I'm concerned that something like this would not be cost effective to us. Our city doesn't even have an ERP system yet, and they're just now gathering data to create a citywide system, but our transit agency doesn't really have input on it. Do either of our presenters have any opinions about that question?
I would expect most DOTs probably have ESRI, some kind of ESRI software in place already. So if they have the GIS expertise, that would be a way to, it would be good to explore with the DOT if they can provide this. I know that we had presented a similar webinar last year, and a few DOTs did reach out to us to see if they could develop a similar app. So I would say talk to your DOT and see if it's possible.
And this is Tom, and so yeah, if you don't have an ERP system, that's a problem. But the ESRI system does have a lot of functionality in regards to attributes. So if you don't have some system to track everything currently, I think the ESRI system does a very nice job of allowing for that attribute information, which then of course can be linked up to the collector app.
And from FTA, I just want to point out that in order to meet the requirements of the TAM rule, systems like the ones that Iowa DOT and Metro Transit are using are not like the be-all, end-all of those things. So if you're a small transit agency, maybe you don't need a huge software system in order to do thorough and consistent condition assessments on your facilities. Maybe you'll need something less than that. So we just want to point out that these are examples of ways that agencies have used to help them manage their assets. But they may manage a different number of assets than your agency does, or they may manage them in a different way. All right, great. So if there's no more questions, I think that we will go ahead and close the webinar. So again, if any come in on the end after we're able to answer them, then we'll get you answers for those. So everyone, thank you so much, and a special thank you to Tom, Sree, and Joe for extremely useful presentations today. Please keep in mind that this webinar will be posted on our FTA YouTube page and available on our outreach page on the FTA TAM website. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great afternoon, and we'll see you at the next TAM webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, so I've stopped broadcasting the audio.
Fantastic. Well, how do you think it went?
I thought it went great. Thanks so much, you guys. This is a complicated issue to try to communicate to an audience that has a wide variety of experiences, so I think you both did a great job.
Thank you.
And
I apologize for not thinking to set more context on the in-house, the fact that it was in-house at the beginning. I think some people got confused by that at the beginning, but thankfully we were able to clarify in the questions that it was not just